Fox Weather Command, you are looking live over beautiful Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic, and it still remains to be seen whether or not the island could be in the path of our tropical cyclone, right? But right now, we're tracking that disturbance in the Atlantic. Its name is 98L. However, we want to bring in Fox Weather hurricane specialist Bryan Norcross for his analysis, because although Invest 98L now, Bryan, this could become Tropical Storm Melissa a lot sooner than later.
Yeah, I think this will jump right to Tropical Storm Melissa. It could be later today or tomorrow, Wednesday at the latest, I would say. But certainly Tropical Storm Melissa looks to be in the Caribbean's future. And then where it goes, as you were talking about earlier, is very uncertain. Look at the numbers from the National Hurricane Center with this Invest. Once they call it an Invest and they start running the specialized computer models on it, then they go ahead and make estimates of the wind speed. And look, 40 miles an hour. So what that tells you is if it does develop a circulation, which is what's missing now, it has the winds to be Tropical Storm Melissa. There's the estimated pressure, 1,008 millibars now. And the idea is in the next couple of days, a 50% chance, they're saying, of development, and 80% in the next week. If you look for the whole week, and you'll see how things are going to play out here. It's very right on the knife's edge exactly how this is going to progress, but likely we're going to have Melissa form here in the Caribbean. All right, let's look at it close up here with the visible satellite picture, and you can see there's lots of thunderstorm activity, but notice there's kind of a line right here, and on the left side of the line over in here, we have lots of dry air, and then here's the moisture here. So that line is actually the tropical disturbance or the wave, and the moisture is all on the backside because it's plowing into dry air on the front side, and we have upper level winds here that are pushing that dry air into the system, and that's what's drying out the kind of left side of the system. So the conditions there in the Caribbean right now are somewhat hostile to development, but it looks like they're conducive enough that there will be some kind of a system develop here, tropical storm develop, in relatively short order. Here you can see on the analysis, this is the wind flow analysis from the European model, and notice it comes in and there's this kink here, very much like a wave, right? That's why it's called a tropical wave, but notice there is no circulation associated with this, so that's why it is not named at this point, even though it does have the winds sufficient to be called a tropical storm. Okay, here's the model. This is the European model, analyzes this, and notice the moisture, the greens, the dark greens are all over on this side here, and notice it's plowing here into the dry air, so that kind of confirms what we saw on the satellite. All right, let's go forward in time here, and we're going to go until Wednesday now, and here you can see it trying to consolidate some. Notice we have a circulation on Wednesday according to the European model, and there's actually a high consensus among the models that we will have a circulation about Wednesday, plus or minus. Hurricane Center giving it 50% over 2 days, probably be 60 or 70% in 3 or 4 days. So in the Wednesday, Thursday time frame, there's where we are south of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And now things get kind of dicey, but on the European model, we're going to go all the way from Wednesday to next Monday, and notice it just kind of lollygags around and drifts across the Caribbean, so that when we get all the way to a week from now, so 7 days from now, we have a defined circulation here, a tropical storm or a hurricane Melissa in the central Caribbean, not moving very much at all. So that's one scenario. Now, let's look at these scenarios more closely. There's the area that the Hurricane Center gives it the 80% chance of eventually developing. So is it over here south of Hispaniola, the Haiti and the Dominican Republic, or does it continue drifting over here and wait to develop? That's the big open question. When we look at the computer models, notice a certain group says, oh, no, it's going to come up here on Wednesday, get into this area. Everybody agrees. Now, is it going to go up to the north? Like that set that does that, that's the GFS and some others, and a large part of the Google DeepMind AI models go up that way, or is it going to go this way? Some of the Google DeepMind AI models say it is going to drift off, and the European model in general takes it to the other side of the Caribbean, and then sort of all bets are off here when we get up to the weekend or into next week, if it does that. So very much a fork in the road coming up on Wednesday. When we add up all the models and look at, or the main models, and look at the tropical threat graphic, again, you see that high confidence, it is in here. Look, we're up in the high range up here. That's about Wednesday. And then does it go north? A little higher confidence of it going north. Notice dark blues, little green up that way. And then lower confidence over in here somewhere. But where is it? I mean, is it up in there? All kind of low confidence specifics. But if you take all that together, you can see there's this general just fork in the track coming up here about midweek. All right, then just look at what is causing this to be a fork in the track. Well, it's the upper level winds and the dip in the jet stream that's coming along. So here we are right now, and notice this dip here coming along. But notice where the bright colors are, the kind of magentas and pinks up here at the top. That's where the strongest winds are. So this is a dip, but it's not a super strong dip that's coming along. So here we are today. Let's go forward in time now to Wednesday. Remember, Wednesday is our big critical day. So what do we have? We have kind of a dip here. It's not a very strong one, but it's here. So if this system is positioned it's just in the right place, and it's strong enough to be picked up by this jet stream dip here, then it's going to shoot on off to the north, and it's going to run into the big mountains in Hispaniola. So that's that one set of possibilities. But like I said, this is not an especially strong dip, and if this is a weaker system, it might not be able to grab it, and that's where the other scenario comes in. And if that happens, then we go forward in time. Let's go through this week and through the weekend all the way to next Monday. As we saw before, the European model kind of drifts the system over here into the Western Caribbean. But then we have another kind of big dip coming along, and it's going to be into next week, and then that might take it up over Cuba. So maybe, or it just misses it and it sits down here and dies and runs into Central America or something next week. So we're talking farther out ahead than we can forecast, especially with this fork in the road coming up. So, Michael, it's one of those situations when we have this kind of is it going to get grabbed or isn't it going to get grabbed? The consensus today is that it is, in terms of the odds being higher, but in no direction are the odds definitive at this point. Right?
Yeah, and Bryan, so just walking along in that scenario where it does get grabbed and pulled up toward the north, tell me what you think would be perhaps the most significant impacts to Dominican Republic and Haiti, noting that they have like 10,000-foot mountains in Hispaniola.
Yeah, they have super tall mountains there. Well, you have two different countries that are very, very different. If you get a tremendous amount of rain or a lot of tropical moisture on those mountains in Haiti, it's a disaster because it's so barren. The mountains, the trees on the mountains have been taken off for wood and essentials that people have needed over the years, where that's not the case in the Dominican Republic. So in the Dominican Republic, you have trees that hold the dirt in place, but you have the rivers coming down the mountains and a different kind of situation. So in both cases, it's dangerous. It is just worse in Haiti because of all of the issues that go with Haiti, unfortunately. But you get tremendous torrential rain coming down the mountain, and obviously in those situations, it's dangerous for the folks that are near those drainage areas and those rivers, even at the coast.
Yeah, absolutely. The deforestation in Haiti is absolutely incredible to see. Bryan, so if it takes the second scenario that you were mentioning, where it perhaps lingers, and I love the word that you use because it's so true. The ECMWF shows this thing lollygagging in the Western Caribbean basin. Would that, given the water temperatures, given the fertile environment, would you expect that if it does linger longer in the Western Caribbean, that maybe we would see more development and perhaps the increase in intensity of the system?
I wouldn't be surprised, for sure. we have these dips in the jet stream come along, and they tend to provide some hostile upper level winds. But then when one goes by, then you have really pretty calm upper level winds, and ahead of the system is water with even more heat content than where it is right now. So the central and western Caribbean has tremendous amount of heat content, in fact, the most in this part of the world. So yes, the fuel would be there, and if the upper level winds are at all conducive and don't somehow hold it back, there's no reason to think that a strong hurricane couldn't develop on down the road, end of this week, early next week in the Western Caribbean.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fact that if that happens and then that, the trough picks it up, that would possibly then move it over the Caribbean. And again, I know that we're starting to get into fairy tale land here in terms of how far out we're getting.
Right.
But would that suggest perhaps, obviously not necessarily U.S. landfall, but could we see more impacts maybe closer to the U.S. then if it moves over Cuba?
Yeah, if it went over Cuba, then folks in the Bahamas would have to be paying close attention to it for sure. I mean, the odds of any kind of effect on the mainland U.S. are extremely, extremely low, so to the point that we wouldn't talk about them normally at this stage. But certainly next week, we'll just be aware that something could happen next week that could affect the Bahamas and Cuba.
Yeah, makes sense. And then the last little thing, what are your thoughts on the rest of the hurricane season?
Well, I mean, these upper level winds, these dips in the jet streams are coming farther south, so they've pretty much shut off the Gulf at this point, and they'll just inch farther south. So odds are we're going to be done, but you're not done until you're done.
Yeah,
as is famously said, right?
Yeah, very true. Still got 40 to 41 days left in hurricane season. We will not let our guard down, and we know that you'll be watching this every step of the way. Fox Weather hurricane specialist Bryan Norcross. Bryan, thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.